of Thrones star Peter Dinklage recently slammed Disney for its upcoming live action remake of Snow White because they are still using dwarfs in the storyline. And since it's live action, they're gonna use actual people, and he doesn't like the fact that they're being portrayed that way. Okay, so I'm gonna give you his quote, but he's getting pushback from people in his own community on this, and Tucker Carlson has decided to exploit that situation. Before we get to the Tucker Carlson video, here's what Dinklage had to say. Literally, no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback when they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing here. It makes no sense to me. You're progressives in one way, but then you're still making that effing backwards story about seven dwarfs living in a cave together. What the F are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause? From my soapbox, I guess I'm not loud enough. So, I think that's a legitimate concern, right? And you also have to keep in mind that Peter Dinklage, in his role on Game of Thrones, I mean, that was really a unique role because it was someone who was portrayed as incredibly intelligent, smart, clever, strong, brave, and I love that character in that show. So I see what he's saying. However, there are others who have a different perspective here, namely Dylan Postl, who's also known as Hornswoggle. He's a WWE guy, and here's what he had to say about this, backlash towards Snow White on Tucker Carlson's show.
I mean, my biggest thing is he wants to be progressive, and it's all about progression, and I support that completely. But the issue is him being progressive is eliminating 7 potential dream jobs from the dwarf acting community, and that's my issue here. Is he's saying he wants to move forward and do good for the community when these are dream jobs. I got hired by WWE. WWE was my dream job since I was 4 years old. Since I was 4 years old, all I wanted to be was a WWE superstar. And in any other circumstance, it wouldn't have been able to be done by me. I'm not 6 foot, I'm not 250 pounds, but they were looking for a person like me, a little person, to fill this role.
And I think that's a legitimate perspective as well, right? There aren't a lot of roles for. By the way, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna be super authentic and vulnerable here. I don't know if it's even okay to say dwarf. Like, is that okay? I don't know. So, I don't want this to come back to bite me in the ass like 10 years later.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. So look, I had the same question, and the articles clearly refer to dwarves. Will they later change the rule? Very likely. Will they then have video compilations of us saying the word and hold us guilty in hindsight?
Yeah.
Of course they will. And so, am I referring to the left? Yes, I am. Okay, and so it's an insane standard. It makes no sense. But since right now, as things stand, everybody is using the word dwarf, I guess we will too. So you can hold us guilty later and invent a time machine so we could fix it as well. Anyways, to the heart of the story. Look, both sides have good points. I don't know if there's a way to fix it, but first let me give credit to Dinklage. And I don't mean for his career. His career has been amazing and has done so much for how people view. Again, I don't know if it's little people or dwarves. I guess we'll stick with dwarves. And so, but I mean in this case, look, the story of Snow White is, there's 7 dwarves living in a cave. Why? Because they're freaks, they're outcasts, and they had to go live in a cave.
Okay.
They're ostracized.
Pause. I think we do need to adjudicate this. We need to go to the Supreme Court, the TYT Supreme Court.
Lost. Conservatives are still complaining about how we packed the court with nothing but progressives.
Yeah.
That's the only Supreme Court in the land that is similar.
Yes.
Anyways, but we often have disagreements and it's interesting conversations. So in this case, the original story is problematic. I don't think that Dinklage is wrong in any way about that. Now, on the other hand, Hogglesworth or whatever, I stopped watching WWE in a long time.
Hornswoggle, please get it right.
Okay, Bigglesworth or whatever, right? I don't know the dude. I'm not trying to make fun of his of who he is. I'm making fun of the name. Okay, he is not wrong. That man, those would have been incredible acting parts, right? So we don't always have to live in a binary world where the right is right, the left is right, or this position is right, or that position is right. It's possible they're both right in some ways and wrong in some ways. Okay, finally, okay, yes, but where would I come out on it? If I'm Disney, I know it feels like a cop-out, but it isn't. I would try to recreate the story. I would try to keep the dwarves, but make the storyline different enough that it feels like it's empowering rather than ostracizing, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, then the right wing will be mad. Oh my God, they changed the story. Why don't we hate the dwarves anymore? We're supposed to, and then we're supposed to pretend that they're not really human and they're either grumpy or happy or sleepy, right? Because they're so weird and different. And they'll hate it that Disney changed the story. They'll hate it that it's a Latina actress doing Snow White. And I know already the hateful things that Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson are going to say. So there is a way to make it right, but I don't know that they're going to go in that direction.
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts on this. Number one, the film isn't out yet, so we don't know how the Seven Dwarfs will be presented. However, look, I'm sure my recollection is probably wrong. I never came away from watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs thinking like, ooh, who are those freaks, right? They were helpful and like loving, and they were like caretakers. Like in my mind, and I was a child when I watched Snow White, right? They were lovely, like.
No, that's true, Anna, but I want to add something really important to that, because all this stuff affects us in ways that we don't even realize. It's just kind of like programming for our brains. And so, yeah, of course you're right about that. I of course felt the same way, and I had a couple of the dwarves as like what a girlfriend had given me, right? Sleepy, grumpy, and happy, the three things that I am. Okay.
Like, didn't they help save her?
Yeah, but what it did when as a kid I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about it until I was an adult. Is dwarves are different. Right.
Okay.
And so they're like little weird different creatures that live in the woods, and they're not like the rest of us, right?
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, and it just ingrains that in you, and you don't even realize it. Like as a kid, I wasn't even. I think I have to confess that I wasn't even sure they were human in the story. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess I do see what you're saying, and I think it's interpreted in different ways by different people. I definitely saw them as human. And I didn't see them as weird or, but again,
different.
It's just different, yeah. But then that's the other thing. That's another conundrum that you run into with these issues, because communities do want to be identified as different, not as weird or outcast, but like, hey, don't erase my identity, right? Like, so it's a lot more difficult, I think. And there is no one person who speaks for an entire community either, right? Which makes it even more complicated, which is why I think on both sides here, there are legitimate concerns. Disney, for its part, by the way, responded to Dinklage with this. To avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. We look forward to sharing more as the film heads into production after a lengthy development period. So we'll see how that plays out. But one other caveat to all of this is, going back to Hornswoggle, the way he's portrayed in the WWE, as you can imagine, not very positive for dwarfs. It's just not. He dresses up as a leprechaun. For instance, one of Hornwoggle's earliest angles in the WWE was him portraying Vince McMahon,
that's the owner of WWE.
Basically presenting himself as his illegitimate son and involved him in biting his bare naked butt. I'm not gonna read that.
No,
wrestling. Bad stuff. Yeah,
I got it, but wrestling does that with a lot of characters. And so look, there's legitimate complaints about it. So, okay, look, let's take it one at a time. In terms of how dwarves are portrayed, Again, the answer is both, right? So they've been portrayed in horrible ways in movies and other forms of entertainment. Look, in Wolf of Wall Street, they show you where they get thrown at a dartboard by bankers. Did that actually happen? I don't know about that particular story, but did things like that happen? All the time in the 80s and 90s and before. Making fun of doors or having doors at a party so you could make fun of them was super common, and it was revolting. And that was even back when I was a Republican. I'd be like, why are we doing this? This is like, I didn't participate at all, but I would see it. I remember one party in particular and going, what the F? This is insane. What part of this is funny, right? At the same time, I don't want to take away Dylan Postl's job as Hornswoggle, right? And it's not, and I'm not judging him. He's got to do whatever he's got to do, right? And he loves doing it. And I'm not hating on the guy who played the Iron Sheik back in the day, back when it was WWF. And was that a stereotypical character that was a terrible depiction of Persians and Muslims? Of course it was, right? And there was Tiger Chung Lee, and he wasn't a great depiction either. And that's a fairly benign one, right? And we can go on and on. So don't bother going back into the past and canceling things, right? What's done is done. Just try to make the best movie you can, provide opportunities where you can, and tell a new story. And don't worry about the right wing who's gonna complain, no, we should keep all the stories bad, right? Like 16 Candles, the character Long Duck Dong. It's awfully racist, right? And back then, everybody thought it was perfectly normal. That's why they put it in a movie and everybody laughed, etc., right? It was against Asians. Now you're watching, you're like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, what are they doing, right? Should we just remake it as it was? No, of course, it's terrible, it's offensive. You could remake it and make it better and new. So overall, that's my answer. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.